Hey all, here OS Reviews. If there's one manufacturer that has my sympathy, it would probably be Sharp, because back in 2015, they released the Aquos Crystal, which was truthfully the first bezel-less phone that started the trend as we know it today. However, this is a phone that is rarely remembered, and it seems like Xiaomi with the Mi Mix really stole all the attention. But because of the Aquos Crystal, I became quite interested in Sharp's smartphone catalog, and today we're taking a look at another device from them that was released shortly afterwards. It's the SH-04 and has a Snapdragon 801 chipset along with a waterproof design, a dual glass design as well, and the same ultra-thin bezel on the top, left, and right-hand sides of the phone, so it gets rid of the need for a notch by putting the front-facing camera on the very bottom, just like on the original Mi Mix before the iPhone X came out and introduced the notch concept. The street price for this phone is now around $100 to $130, and the UI here is very different from stock Android. It's been heavily customized by Sharp, like most of the Japanese and kind of Docomo phones that we've seen before. However, there is still an app drawer that you can bring back, which is nice to see, that you can use to scroll through all of your apps one by one, or to search using this bar at the very top. But the most prominent thing on this phone is going to be that chin on the very bottom there. Taking a closer look at the design first, on the right-hand side we have a micro USB port used for charging. On the very top there is a flap that covers up the SIM card and micro SD card to expand on the built-in memory. There is a standard 3.5mm headphone jack, which is nice, and there's also an antenna because in Japan and across Asia you can still catch TV channels using this analog reception. And on the right-hand spine you have access to a very small power on-off key along with a volume rocker. This is nestled too closely, in my opinion, to be super comfortable, but that's one of the only flaws here. On the very back we also have a loudspeaker. Not the most ideal placement in the world, but it is what it is, and the back again is made out of glass, just like on the front. It's made by Corning. It's the Gorilla Glass, so it feels very sturdy and premium in the hands. We also have a 13 megapixel camera, and this phone does have NFC in addition to Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth, but no wireless charging. Aside from this glass, waterproof, and tri-bezel-less design going on, what's also unique about the SH-04 was the sensors on the side of the phone is very similar to something like EdgeSense on HTC with that squeeze function, but it doesn't actually tell you the amount of pressure that you're applying on the phone, except it knows when you are touching the sides of the phone. So for instance, if we turn the device off, I can touch the sides like that to have the display pop back onto life. Now underneath this skin, we do have Android 4.4 KitKat, which is kind of outdated now, but still runs all the latest titles from the Play Store without any issues. And again, we have 2 gigs of RAM assisting the phone, which still keeps up all right. You can see that navigation is still quite smooth and responsive here. There is a McAfee for kind of their antivirus scanning. There's a custom browser from Sharp. There's also versions of calculator utility tools which are also unique and look super different from stock Android, but I do kind of like it. So again, this is a rotation deterrence function, so when you're gripping it like this using one hand, it thinks that you don't want to change the orientation. But now in terms of other commands, we can drag down to have access to the notification drawer, and from here I can pull down even more to take a look at things like Wi-Fi, GPS, Bluetooth. Another interesting thing here is called Veil View, which we've already seen on some past Japanese phones, and what that does is applies an interesting filter over the screen, which means if you try and tilt the screen now, it becomes almost unreadable at certain angles. But if you're looking at it head on, you can still read it. This is maybe useful if you're on a super crowded bus or subway and you don't want people around you to know what you're glancing at. Similar to iOS and EMUI, I can also drag down from the main screen here to open up Universal Search and my previously open applications. And this is for multitasking. It shows off in this really interesting screen at the bottom of your phone that gives you your favorites, your history of apps which are currently open, which we can clear all or swap back and forth between, and mini apps, such as taking a look at photos in this tiny little resizable window that you can drag across this main screen here, almost like a widget, or perhaps the calendar app. So this is, again, very interesting on an Android 4.4 KitKat device. Another unique feature is I can use the gesture of swiping upwards to have access to this search command to take a look at Google Assistant, and I can also swipe left or swipe right to have a small screen view, so that will shrink down the usable size for one-handed navigation, because this phone has a 5.5-inch regular 16:9 aspect ratio. So it is basically a phablet in terms of the size, very similar to a 6-inch phone in today's taller aspect ratio format. So it may be a little bit large for people with smaller hands to access, so you do have this quick command. And one last unique trick is I can pinch out from this main screen to take a look at my hidden apps. So if there's something that's really security conscious, like a banking app or a shopping app, you can hide it and select this in this catalog, which the main screen doesn't show unless you pinch out and then enter a password correctly. And a quick look at the camera. It's never going to be a camera-centric phone or the best camera phone in the world because Sharp isn't really known for making cameras. They are known, however, for making displays. The interface is nearly identical to the Sharp Aquos phone that we first saw nearly 3 years ago, the Aquos Crystal, and you can snap an image relatively quickly in good lighting environments. It gives you these fancy grid lines, and because of the, again, smaller bezels, it does feel like you're holding onto just the screen or the content as opposed to a device, which is nice. We can change things like geotagging. I can record video up to 4K, which is also quite impressive. I can change the resolution. There is auto HDR as well. I can also change the scene selection mode that you can set through. You can also capture food images. It's intelligent enough to recognize when you are pointing at different objects as well. Taking a look at some of these shots here, again with this full screen experience, it is quite immersive and you get a surprising amount of detail when there's good lighting and your hand is steady. It takes a split second to capture the shot and then process it using HDR, but afterwards you can zoom in quite a bit and still get a reasonably sharp looking shot. Again, the skies here are not too overexposed. We still get the texture of clouds in the background. The display is definitely helping. It's a great panel with wide viewing angles and pretty accurate looking colors. So again, makes the overall image experience also seem to be quite good. So exiting out of the camera app here, I would say again the camera is passable, but as a mid-end phone today, I would say it's more than usable, but it's not going to be again as amazing as other flagships have been released since then. And it doesn't have many of the kind of dual camera tricks like bokeh effects that you can capture with newer phones. Let's turn up the volume a little bit here on this YouTube clip.
It's been a long time since we last saw a smartphone be released by Sharp here in the United States. For example, over a decade ago, we saw these Sharp Danger Sidekicks, and a few years ago, we saw the Sharp Kin 1 and 2 phones, but those were huge commercial failures. And so the Sharp Aquos Crystal is in many ways a very important phone for the Japanese manufacturer.
Takeaway is video playback is quite immersive because of the display, which is high quality and again has reasonably small bezels. The grip sensor also comes into play so that if we're holding it like this, it's going to not try and rotate the orientation because we're holding the size, but if I try and flip it now, it will now flip over. So depending on how you hold the phone, it will try and sense, whether you want the screen to flip or not. The audio quality of the speakers aren't very good. I do find them to be a little bit distorted and tinny, especially at higher volumes, and it doesn't pack too much punch. A quick web browsing test. We are trying to load up the desktop version of sites, and you can tell that kind of pinch and zoom is still quite responsive and smooth. So the Snapdragon 801 is still a pretty decent processor, even in 2018, as a kind of phone that you can buy now in the budget price segment. And again, loading speeds are quite fast. Still going to be a little quicker in real-world usage compared to a Snapdragon 625. It's just RAM is not quite as high as on modern-day phones with only 2 gigs built on in. So you should be more wary and cautious of opening up too many tabs or opening up too many apps in the background. That will slow down the experience. In terms of battery life and endurance, the phone has a 3,300 milliamp hour capacity battery, which is actually still quite good, I would say. It will get you through it the entire day without any problems. Some more unusual apps now. We do have a custom music player here that's done by Sharp. As you can see, that looks quite different. It allows you to shuffle by artist title, genre. Sharp also has something called To Sleep. So this is essentially hibernation mode that will make the boot up on the next time a lot faster as opposed to a clean boot. So this is a feature that's more borrowed on computers. Finally, I'll say that because of this again, slim bezels on the sides, just like on the Sharp Aquos Crystal, if you turn off and turn on the phone, you can actually set different effects for the bezels to maybe flash a certain color, or if you're getting a new call, it's also going to flash on the bezels to make more people notice it. So that's kind of fun. You can play around with that in the settings. So that's pretty much it as far as our revisited review of the Sharp Aquos SH-04F 4, Sharp as a company and as a phone manufacturer has been quite underrated. Yes, it's not going to be quite to the same polished extent as a Galaxy phone or an Apple iPhone, but it's also a lot cheaper, just simply because people have not really regarded their devices with too much attention. And this device, which still has pretty good specs for an entry-level mid-end phone in 2018, again, can be picked up for about 100 to 150 bucks, which can be worthwhile to look at if you want to kind of support Sharp and their endeavors in terms of making unique and fairly innovative phones. So you can check out more details in the links down below, but that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the Sharp Aquos SH-04F.